Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 23rd episode of Battles and Voices. I'm Athika, and I'm the founder and host.
And I'm Camden, and I'm the co-host. Together, we serve on the executive team of Vitals and Voices.
Battles and Voices amplifies the stories of students, mentors, and professionals shaping the future of healthcare.
Now, please welcome our guest, Brandon.
Hi, how's it going, everybody?
Brandon, thank you so much for joining us on Battles and Voices. We're so excited to have you here today. To start off, could you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me. Very excited to be here. So, a brief introduction about myself. My name's Brandon. I'm a certified surgical technologist, and I've been working in this profession now for just over 3.5 years. Outside of my work in the operating room, I'm also an undergraduate student, currently pursuing a bachelor's in biology through Arizona State University.
Well, congratulations, and it sounds like you've done a lot so far. So, you've had a very unique journey from exploring sports medicine in high school to working in law enforcement and now in the
Mhm.
operating room. What what truly has inspired you to enter the healthcare field and find your way back to it?
Yeah, so it's definitely been a journey. And so, as you mentioned, my interest in medicine and healthcare really it started in high school, through a sports medicine course. Soon after high school, I began working as a patient transporter at my local hospital. And even though I didn't realize at that time that I wanted to pursue a career in healthcare, I definitely felt drawn to it. The pace of the environment, the teamwork, and just the overall sense of purpose definitely appealed to me. Um, Fast forward a little bit, I ended up trying a pre-nursing track for a little bit, but my heart wasn't really in that profession. I eventually obtained my CNA certification, and I began working in the emergency department as a nursing assistant. As a first generation student, though, the idea of pursuing higher education it just kind of felt out of reach, especially pursuing anything in medicine or healthcare. And I wasn't really sure kind of where I fit in that role, I guess you could say. So kind of feeling a little bit, I guess, lost. I did have some family in law enforcement, an uncle of mine, who had encouraged me to, I guess, pursue that career, seeing as it applied somewhat to the values that I was looking for in medicine. And so after some tough, conversations with family and my wife, I decided to try to pursue that career path and ended up going through academy, became a full-fledged police officer, and it was really beneficial in a lot of ways, and it was a very good confidence builder. But I couldn't help but you know think or question to myself, what if I had stayed in healthcare, or what if I had continued to try and pursue that opportunity? And so, even though it was kind of scary at that time, I went ahead and resigned from that career and decided to go back to try to pursue healthcare. And so this was around 2020, and it was during the second wave of COVID. And I ended up working in the ER and the ICU. And it was really in that moment that I guess kind of reignited everything, my passion for medicine, healthcare. Um, More so specifically, um, interacting with and seeing the physicians and the PAs and the NPs and just how calm and focused they were in the middle of that chaos. It just kind of it reminded me of why I really wanted to be in healthcare, and that's when I decided at that point that I would, against all odds, pursue medicine. Um, Luckily for me, my local hospital did have, it still does actually, has an in-house surgical technologist program. And so in my current role as a CNA, it was fantastic, but I felt like I wanted more responsibility. I just wanted to grow more academically as well. And so I applied to that program and I was accepted. And I began my training as a surgical technologist. And now, fast forward 3.5 years later, I am now a certified technologist working in surgery. I love every minute of it. It's been an amazing career choice thus far, and it's helped push me to pursue furthering my education. And now I'm about a year away from applying to podiatric medical school. So it's definitely been a winding journey, but one that I wouldn't change for anything.
Well, congratulations on all your achievements. I'm so happy that you found yourself into the healthcare field. So you talked about how your time in the OR can be both fast-paced and intense. What motivates you to keep showing up and giving your best, especially during those challenging or high-pressure days?
Yeah. So that's I think one of the things that I can't attest for everybody who works in surgery, but it's definitely one of those things, that environment that I think is one aspect that keeps I guess keep surgical staff going back, is that that uncertainty of how the day will play out, right? But as far as like motivation for staying, I think it's knowing that we impact somebody's quality of life every day. Um, Even on those hard days where it's, very stressful, and, cases aren't exactly going to plan, so to speak, I just remind myself that, every case, it matters, and whether it's an unfortunate, traumatic case, or a limb salvage, or even a routine procedure. Although those in surgery will tell you no surgery is routine. There's always somebody who's ultimately depending on us, and so that really calls to me. Um, Aside from that, I also find a lot of motivation in that team dynamic. Surgery is it's not a solo effort by any means. It is a collaborative sport, so to speak, and there's just constant collaboration between surgeons and the nurses, anesthesia, technologists, and other ancillary staff. And when we're all in that sort of, I guess, that flow state, that sync, it's very rewarding, and that in and itself, really pushes me to show up each day and to just want to be better. And then I would say, lastly, on a personal level, um, you know, being a first generation student, non-traditional student, as well as a healthcare professional, I want to show, that dedication and passion, can create a lot of opportunities for ourselves. And I've been fortunate enough to also be a one of the lead preceptors for the technologists that are coming through, students, and it really helps. It's really beneficial and just really gratifying to be able to open doors for others along the way. And I just, yeah, find a lot of gratitude in that, for sure.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. And you've also said that you're also passionate about improving healthcare access in rural and underserved communities. Could you share what inspired that passion and what you hope to contribute to that cause in the future?
So yeah, so I'm from a little city in Arizona. Um, it's considered definitely a rural community, to kind of give you some idea of how small we are. There's really only one hospital for the entire city. That's our major hospital, and it provides care for multiple counties, and even Mexico. And so, being in surgery, I was, unfortunately, able to, see how um, I was able to see how differences in access and resources in education, um, ultimately affected patient outcomes. And that for me is what kind of initiated me to pursue that topic of providing access to healthcare for our patients. I'm definitely a big believer in coming back and actually serving my community, and that's something I really want to do post graduate education. I would love to come back to my community and actually be a leader here and provide that specialized care to those here that otherwise wouldn't have access to it elsewhere. And so aside from obviously expanding medical care and services, like I think a big portion of that is also educating and just providing preventative care. I think it's um, a huge topic needs to be addressed, especially here in my community. Um, you know, um, it's rather unfortunate, but diabetes education is just so limited, and that's something that I've really seen a lot, unfortunately, working with podiatric surgeons and having podiatric working with podiatric patients and just seeing how detrimental that can really be. So yeah, that's something that really pushes me to want to provide that access and find a way to kind of bridge that gap.
I really love that. So you mentioned balancing full-time work and surgery, while pursuing your bachelor's in biology, and that's such an impressive commitment. How do you manage your time between both worlds while still prioritizing your own well-being?
I'm not gonna lie to you, it is difficult at times. Full-time work and full-time school has been a everlasting an everlasting battle. And there are some days, truthfully, where it is difficult to try to find that balance. But I'm sure as those of us who are pursuing this field, or those of us who are pre-med or pre-nursing or what have you, finding that time for yourself is crucial, and being able to separate um, work and school is really what's going to help you succeed in the long run. And yeah, I guess I just try to do my best to schedule my days out. I mean, it's not always easy, being a surgical technologist. I do have to be on call, and my time isn't always mine, and I kind of have to find ways to revolve around that. But thankfully, I have a really great support system with my wife, and also my employment, my department. They know of my endeavors, and they're also thankfully are very supportive. And so there's another great support system there. But yeah, I guess just like everybody else, I try to find that balance. It's not always easy, but yeah, I don't know.
I really love that for you. And so, working across so many surgical specialties must come with so many memorable moments from each. Is there any
Definitely.
particular case or experience in the OR that really stuck with you and or shaped the way that you see patient care?
Yeah. So it's kind of the one of the points that really pushed me to want to pursue podiatric medicine is, again, in my community, there's, like I mentioned earlier, the unfortunate lack of education with diabetic care. And unfortunately, you know, um, an unfortunate outcome with unmanaged diabetes can be the loss of limb. And unfortunately, that does happen quite often. But our podiatric surgeons here are amazing, and they really try their best to do limb salvage. And that's one case that really stuck with me. You know, um, rather than I guess impacting this patient's life and having their ability to just simple tasks, walk, run, you know. removing them completely, we um, essentially rebuilt this patient's lower foot, and gave this patient the fighting chance, if you will, and the opportunity to continue with their life. And that for me was what kind of sparked really my interest in podiatric medicine, was the ability to give this patient who might not otherwise have the chance or the opportunity to walk again. And I think that's what really stuck with me. And that's a case that I think about constantly, especially when I'm, having those long nights, studying for my courses, trying to think, oh, is it worth it? Just think of that outcome at the end of the day, when I'm able to be in that position, hopefully in the future, and being able to help patients get back on their feet, and give them that opportunity is yeah, is really good.
That's wonderful. So you also share that you used to work in law enforcement before returning to healthcare,
Mhm.
which is such a big career shift. How did that experience influence your perspective on the way that you approach teamwork in medicine today?
That's a very good question. And how it impacted. So, what it really helped out a lot, especially in surgery, is the ability to communicate openly with, other staff, and without, I guess, that fear of I guess you could say, I guess without that fear of potential conflict, if that makes any sense. I know in surgery and medicine, we're very there's a lot of strong personalities, and sometimes, in medicine in general, it's always a little bit nerve wracking to try to speak out your mind, I guess, in what's best for the patient in best interest. And that's one thing I think that I really took away from being in law enforcement, was it really gave me that confidence to be able to speak and direct and be able to help lead in certain aspects in surgery. And I think that's one thing that I definitely took from law enforcement for sure. Aside from that, just also, you know, the ability to think under high stress situations. They're both, surgery and law enforcement are both stressful in their own way, but um, it's definitely it was definitely a opportunity for me to law enforcement, I should say, was definitely an opportunity for me to grow stronger, both, mentally, um, and I think that's a really big takeaway as well that I take with me still to this day in medicine for sure.
I think that's really incredible. And earlier you mentioned being a first generation student,
Mhm.
which is such an important part of your story. And how has that identity shaped the way that you navigate your education and career in healthcare?
Yeah, so that's another great question. And you know, looking now, now that I'm currently in that role of being a student. It's I'm able to look back now and really see how difficult it was for me growing up as a professional student. My parents, their highest education was high school, and they didn't really know how to navigate the education system and how to navigate scholarships and financial aid. And so um, things of that nature were always difficult for me to try to understand looking back now. And it's definitely made it, difficult even up to this point. I've had to, go through trial and error, find out how to navigate the system myself. And I think that's one of the harder things with non-traditional students is the educational system and pathway, isn't really I mean, it's changing, but it hasn't really been geared or it hasn't really been the easiest for us to navigate. Um, and so that's kind of been one of the more difficult aspects, um, going into medicine and healthcare as a non-traditional, as a first generation student. My apologies. Um, but I've been thankful enough to have older brothers who were also, first generation who navigated that path before me, and I've been really thankful to have, them as well to kind of help me navigate, I guess, these uncharted waters. And that's kind of been a very big help, and I'm definitely grateful, for having at least that, um, I guess, that safety net.
That's wonderful. So you've already accomplished so much, from earning your certification to preparing for podiatric medical school. So looking back, what's a personal accomplishment or milestone that you're most proud of?
Oh my goodness. An accomplishment or a milestone, man. Well, I think there isn't any one particular, I think, accomplishment that I'm proud of per se. I think what I'm most proud of at this point um, would just be my perseverance in this entire journey. Um, as we've mentioned before, being a non-traditional student, my path definitely wasn't linear, and I've had to navigate quite a bit. And I've had to change directions and career paths, and rebuild my confidence along the way. And that's, it's been tough. It's been difficult, at times. But through all of that, I've stayed committed to growing and continuing forward. And balancing full-time work in school, as we've spoken about, it hasn't always been easy, but it has taught me um, a lot about resilience and purpose. And every challenge that I've endured thus far, from returning back to healthcare um, during COVID, to now finding a place in surgery, and preparing to apply to podiatric medical school, it's reminding me of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think that persistence to this day is, more than anything else, it's truly what I'm proud of. And I think that speaks true, and I would assume it resonates with a lot of other non-traditional first generation students. Is our ability to persevere and continue, in the face of adversity. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, sorry. That's
You're fine.
incredible. So now you're just 1 year away from applying to, oh my gosh, I'm probably gonna pronounce this wrong.
You're fine.
Um, Podi, oh,
You're
how do
good.
you say it, Latika?
I think it's podiatric.
Podiatric, yes,
I
perfect.
might be
Podiatric.
saying it wrong.
Okay, so you're now just a year away from applying to pediatric medical school.
Hmm.
Congratulations on that. What excites you the most about that big step in your medical journey?
Man, what excites me the most? I think, honestly, um, I think the first thing that's really exciting, I know it sounds silly, but is just applying. It seems like such a, for the longest time, I didn't necessarily think I had um I just didn't think I had the grit, or I guess, like the intelligence to even attempt that feat. Um, but just the thought of me even applying, and in and of itself is just so exciting. And every now and then I think about, oh my gosh, however many years down the line, you know, um, just being the first physician in my family, I think is going to be just such an amazing moment. and just being able to come back, to my community here in Arizona, and you know, that'd be very awesome if I could work at our local hospital and kind of be, full circle, and kind of, be that example and that motivation for others. I started off, as kind of a lost, student. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I worked my way, from patient transport all the way up to, a foot and ankle surgeon. I think is something that just really excites me. And yeah, I think just the journey and the idea that I'm right there, and it's finally, becoming a reality is what's really exciting for me personally.
Yeah, definitely. So finally, what advice would you give to students or aspiring healthcare professionals who might be unsure of the path but still feel called to make an impact in this field?
That is a great question. And I would say, if you feel unsure, that's okay. It's okay to feel unsure. And I know all of us are always scared about whether or not we're making the right choice. But, you know, speaking from, personal experience, if you're unsure about it, but, something keeps pulling you back, something keeps calling you to pursue, that path, even though it might feel scary, just dive in, go for it. Um, there's obvious reason, for that interest, and don't be afraid to explore that reason. I think you might find that with a little bit of exploration, and you'll start to find that why, is why you want to pursue healthcare, why you want to be in medicine. It's definitely difficult. It's not an easy road for sure. I'm sure we all know that, but if we could, you know, when you get to that point where maybe you're unsure about the decision, just sit back, take a breather, and think about what called you to want to pursue, that career in the first place. And I think that'll be a very um, good grounding point for many students, including myself. I do that, quite often. If I'm ever feeling unsure that I'm doing the right, um, you know, decision, I think back to how I felt, you know, um, when I was stepped away from medicine, and something was just calling me back, and I just felt that that was where I needed to be. And had I not pursued that, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So I think that's definitely one big key takeaway that I would give to students.
Well, that is some great advice. Thank you so much, Brandon. Again, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. Your
Mhm.
journey is such a powerful example of resilience, purpose, and finding your way back to what truly matters.
Absolutely. It is so inspiring to see how your dedication and openness to growth have truly shaped your career that you have today.
And to everyone tuning in, thank you for joining us on this episode of Battles and Voices. Your support means so much to us.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to follow, share, and stay tuned for more inspiring stories from healthcare leaders and change makers. We'll see you next time.